welcome everybody to our monthly Neighborhood Data for Social Change training. We're so excited that you're here and joining us in our Zoom format. I'm Caroline Bala, and I'm the Managing Director of the Price Center for Social Innovation at USC, which is a research center in the Price School of Public Policy. We have the mission to develop ideas and illuminate strategies to improve the quality of life for people living in low-income urban communities. And we do that through research, which we do to help solve intractable problems, but we also study the field of social innovation and are working to become experts in social innovation and teach the world more about the field. One of the precursors to doing this work is the need for good data. So facts and information so folks can measure the conditions in the communities in which they're working, understand their neighborhoods better, and plan their programs and service delivery and work that they're doing accurately. And so to that end, we have built the Neighborhood Data for Social Change, which is the project that we're going to teach you to use today. We would love for this to be interactive. Although Ellie and I are very happy to talk to just each other, we would be so happy if you would join us. If you can drop in the Q&A or the chat, industries you're interested in learning more about, topics you're interested in learning more about. You can maybe say where you're located, if you're in LA County, which neighborhood you're in, or where you work. That way we can help tailor the training to you. It will be hands-on. Ellie will share her screen and we'll be walking you through the different facets and functions of the site. And I'll just give you a couple more words about NDSC while I give you a chance to just pop your comments in. Is it chat or Q&A that we want them to write in?
I don't know.
Can you use chat right now? I don't know. I can't tell. I don't know. Well, try. Oh, there's a chat. Yes. So go ahead and thank you very much, Donna Jean. Can you all? Oh, good. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. So please keep doing that in the chat. It makes me happy. So we're seeing the chat come in. I don't think other people can see the chat, but I can. So we've got different organizations telling me where they're coming from. So I'll just say that the Neighborhood Data for Social Change was launched 3 years ago. Yeah, in October. We didn't have a birthday party this year. We normally do. We should have had a drive-by birthday party where we all honked for NDSC, but we missed that opportunity. So NDSC is about 3 years old, and we have about 2,500 users a month who come to access data about their neighborhoods. Whatever you see, if there's something missing, please tell us. If you have specific questions, we'd be happy to answer them. With that, and thank you for putting in all of your, what you're interested in. It's wonderful, thank you. I'm gonna pass it over to my partner in crime, Ellie Shane.
Thanks, Caroline. Hey, everybody, my name is Ellie, and I am the Data and Project Manager at the USC Price Center for Social Innovation. And I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so we can get started. And if you have questions, please feel free to put them, I guess, either in the Q&A box or in the chat.
Put them in the Q&A. That way everyone else can see your questions. Because I'm the only one who can, Ellie and I are the only ones who can see the chat. So I will tell you all, we've got folks from USC, from Trust South LA, people are interested in the Westwood Pico Union area. We have someone from the office of Representative Lucille Roybal-Allard. We've got people interested in the USC area, Sella community. We've got someone here from the state of Colorado, University Park and the city of Long Beach, interested in learning about specific care communities. So I think at this point, just put your questions in the chat, the Q&A, and I will share them throughout the training.
Okay, cool, right on. So the first thing I think you guys need to know to get started is that you can access Neighborhood Data for Social Change, affectionately known as NDSC, from anywhere, any computer. You can just go to la.myneighborhooddata.org, and it does work a little better on a computer than it does on a phone, just given the nature of the map and everything. So I'll just say a little bit more about NDSC before we dive in and give a little bit of an agenda for our training today. And as Caroline mentioned, NDSC was launched about 3 years ago. And before it was launched, it went through a 5-year planning process where a bunch of different community stakeholders, including the Federal Reserve, some different banks, different local governments, community-based organizations, universities came together and asked the question, would a neighborhood data portal be useful for LA? And if so, what are the types of things that it should include? And so out of that sort of community planning process really came the spirit of NDSC. And some of the really core tenets are that we want it to be really easy to use, and we want to make data easy to understand. So you don't have to have an advanced degree in statistics or something like that to be able to use NDSC and understand what's going on. So we have a couple different components of the platform. Our kind of bread and butter is the mapping platform, which we'll get into. But before we do that, I'll take you guys through our data stories, which are a really fun component of NDSC, one of my favorites. And then also just a little overview of all the data that we have on the map, just so you guys can kind of know where to access that. One of the things that I do want to show you that's sort of specific to the COVID times is that we have also launched a dashboard that provides sort of daily updated data for COVID-19. And you can get to it, you guys, by just sort of clicking through here on the slider, and you can click view the dashboard. And it'll take you to a page that has some really cool data that's updated on a daily basis. So we have some different kind of neighborhood profiles that kind of dive into intersecting issues of COVID. So talking about housing vulnerability, unemployment, homelessness, and how that, sort of how COVID has impacted people experiencing homelessness throughout LA County. So those are really cool, sort of really focused neighborhood profiles that talk about kind of adjacent issues to COVID. We also have some really cool, there we go, neighborhood maps, which are updated daily and show kind of a current snapshot of what's going on with both cases and deaths in LA County. And we have this data both sort of for neighborhoods throughout the county, and then we also have a zoomed in map for the city of LA that shows cases and deaths by the city of LA. And if you hover over a neighborhood, so like if I hover over, I'll hover over Westlake here, you can sort of see that there's a lot of great information. You can see sort of the 14-day growth in cases, but also the total number of cases throughout the neighborhood, and then some other kind of relevant data about vulnerable populations, folks who are uninsured, older folks, folks who have asthma, that type of stuff. So this is a really great resource for the kind of neighborhood level data, but we also have some really good county level data where you can kind of see wide trends across the county. And we have sort of total confirmed cases, we have kind of hospitalizations as well as deaths over time, and then a 7-day average of the positivity rate. So you can sort of see, like right now, the positivity rate is spiking back up, and it's not as high as it was in April and May, but sort of on the rise. And this data is updated based on the numbers from the LA County Department of Public Health. And again, we update it about 5 times a week, sometimes not on the weekends, but certainly get that data to you as soon as we can. And the last thing I want to show you guys is just that we do also have data broken down by race and ethnicity as well. So that's our COVID dashboard, and that's kind of a new feature of NDSC since COVID started. And I'll just pause to ask Caroline if we have any questions about the COVID dashboard.
No, not so far. Thanks, Ellie.
Right on. Okay, cool. So I am then going to take you guys back to the homepage, and you can get back to the homepage by sort of just clicking this main logo. And the next thing that we'll dive into in this training is data stories. So you can see a list of all of the data stories over here on the top menu on the left by clicking stories. And what these are sort of little almost articles or snapshots of specific issues in specific neighborhoods around LA County. So you can sort of see some examples to kind of dive in, because that was a little bit vague, but we do release them each month in partnership with a different community partner who's kind of focusing on the issue. So I'll just click on our most recent data story so you guys can sort of see what they're all about. And again, these are kind of keeping in the spirit of really providing a lot of narrative and context around the data so that you know, we can really understand that there are sort of people behind the numbers and not just, you know, kind of points on an Excel sheet. So this story is about small business lending and kind of the racial inequities that have happened in sort of the PPP loan program, the Paycheck Protection Program during COVID-19. And so just so you can sort of get an idea of how the stories kind of go, we give some background or context about the issues. So talking about, here you can see the reduction in active owned businesses by race and ethnicity, gender, and immigration status. We went into a little bit of history about sort of racial disparities in business loans, kind of redlining, that type of thing. Talking about some current data about the Paycheck Protection Program, the different industries that it covers in LA County, and then also diving into looking at the number of loans received by neighborhood. And you can sort of see the lighter colors in the South LA area where there are more businesses and people of color having much fewer loans. And so kind of diving into that a little bit more. And then talking about finally some of the work that our different partners are doing. So this particular story was written in partnership with the Los Angeles Local Development Company, LDC, and that's a community development financial institution that is working to sort of bridge the gap between kind of financial access in communities of color, and just talking a little bit about the work that they are doing. So we always like to end these stories on, you know, kind of a positive, hopeful note, looking at all of the work that our great partners are doing out in the community, given that the issues that we're highlighting in data stories a lot of times are kind of heavy. So if you would like to partner with us on a data story, we would love to partner with you. We will send out a feedback form, but I'll also send you an email, and you can just reply to me, and we can set up a time to talk further about sort of the issue and neighborhood you'd like to focus on. I'm going to check in again with Caroline just to see if there are any questions.
No questions.
Right on. Okay. So I think what we'll do then, now that we've sort of covered data stories, is just provide a little bit of a preview of what data you'll see on the map and kind of where you can find a bunch of really great info about our data. And then we'll hop into map navigation. So to sort of get to all of our what I call quote unquote learn more pages where you can get some good info about the data, you can just click this data button over here on the top right-hand corner of the screen. And as you can see, our data sets are organized into 10 different policy areas. So we have stuff around demography, education, you know, food insecurity, housing, transportation down here at the bottom. So I'll click on a page here just to sort of show you what this looks like. And so in the housing and real estate page, as it's loading, we provide a little bit of context about why housing and real estate is sort of an important thing to think about in terms of social change and good policy. And then also scrolling down a little bit more, you can see all of the different data sets that we have available in the housing and real estate area. And if you click on a data set further, so I'm going to click on rent burden just to show you guys what these pages look like. These data set pages have a lot of great information on them. So As you're looking at these pages, you can sort of see all of the different variables that we have within a data set. So this particular data set has both rent burden and severe rent burden, and you can get the definitions here too. So rent burden is people who are paying more than 30% of their incomes on rent, and severe rent burden is those who are paying more than half of their incomes on rent. You can also see sort of where we get our data from. We don't typically collect any of the data ourselves because NVSC does cover the entire county. So to get data for the entire county is like a really arduous task. So we do take data from a lot of different publicly available places. A lot of it does come from the American Community Survey, probably about half or 60%. But we also get data from the State Department of Education, from LA County, City. We get data from the Cal Enviro Screen, from HUD, so sort of lots of different places. And if you are exploring NVSC and there's a data set that you don't see that you'd like to see, please do let us know because we add sort of data to the portal based on community requests. So the more people that are requesting a data set, of course, if it is available, we'll sort of add it in based on how many people are requesting. So just to show you guys a couple other things on this page, there's also some really good information kind of about why this type of variable is important to measure. So it talks about sort of where that 30% threshold for affordability came from, and just some other good information, kind of keeping in that spirit of providing a lot of context around the data. And finally, if you are a real sort of data person and you like to download and sort of be in the data in the Excel spreadsheet type stuff, you can download the full data set using this big red button down here on the right side. And it'll take you to a page where you can sort of download all of the different census tracts for all of the years of this particular data set. But I do want to say that the point of NVSC is hopefully that you won't have to sort of download data and look at it in an Excel sheet. Hopefully we've created this really great mapping portal that you can just sort of look at the map and get the information that you want. So I think we will dive into the map then. I do want to pause again and ask Caroline if there are any questions.
No, I have no questions so far, but I would encourage people to ask them. But you're doing great, Ellie. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and hop into the map. And so you'll notice that there's a little bit of a different navigation on some of these Learn More pages. If you're in one of these pages, you can access the map by just clicking the Los Angeles menu and then clicking Enter the Map. If you're kind of back on the main data home, home page that we've been working in, you can just click Map over here on the right side. And so that'll take us into the map navigation, which I'm super excited to share with you guys. And we're just waiting for it to load here. And so we're looking at the 272 neighborhoods in LA County as defined by the LA Times. And neighborhood boundaries, I think, are a fun and controversial topic in any community, but I think especially in LA, and it's definitely something that the planning kind of committee group went back and forth on a lot. And what we decided to do is use the sort of boundaries that the LA Times came up with, because we felt like they sort of went through a really good process of sort of community engagement over, and gosh, maybe it's been about 5 years now since they drew these boundaries, but these are the boundaries that we decided to go with. If you don't like the way that the LA Times defines your neighborhood, or if you work for an organization that has, maybe a larger catchment area that's not a neighborhood, later in the training, we will go through how to create your own neighborhood so that you can sort of define boundaries yourself. In the meantime, let me show you around a couple other things on our map. So whenever you load the map for the first time and kind of enter the map, the default kind of data set is going to be total population. And so you can sort of see down here on the map legend that the data set is total population. And just to give you a hint on sort of how to read the map, the lighter colors in whatever data set you're on are always going to mean a smaller value, and the darker colors are always going to mean a higher value. So it's not necessarily good and bad, it's rather low and high. So in this case, you can sort of see like in the Southeast Antelope Valley here, there's 7,000 residents. I don't know if you guys can see that. And you can sort of just get a neighborhood value immediately by sort of hovering over the map. So that's the lightest value, 7,000 residents. And if we go down here to Long Beach, which has the darkest value, you can see that there's 470,000 something residents. So a much higher population in Long Beach. So that's kind of sort of how to read the map on first glance. Let's say that you want to change the data set. You go over here to the left side of the map, and you can see that we have those same 10 policy areas that we were looking at over on the Learn More pages just a second ago. So I will show you guys the same data set that we were just looking at. So we can go to housing and real estate, and you can see all those kind of same data sets. And then we'll go to rent burden, and we'll look at rent burden. And so if you click on that, you can see that the map is going to change here. So let's say that you want to, now that we kind of have the data set that we want to find the value for a certain neighborhood. So one of the things that you can do is sort of hover around to find your neighborhood and kind of just hover over the neighborhood. But let's say that you don't know where your neighborhood is located exactly, or you don't have a lot of time. You can go up here into the search bar in the middle of the map, and you can start typing in a neighborhood name. And so I'm going to type in Westlake. I heard Caroline say that we have some folks interested in that area. And so I'll go ahead and click on Westlake, and you can see that the map zooms you into exactly where Westlake is. And you'll notice that over here on the right side, we now have this data tab that's populated with all of this really, really great information. So the first thing that's here on the data tab is the definition of the variable that we're looking at. So that's really helpful just to remember, oh, rent burden means folks who are paying more than 30% of their incomes on rent and utilities. If you are interested in sort of getting back to all of the information about the data set that we were just looking at, you can click this little Learn More link, and that'll take you back to the page that we were just looking at that kind of had all the source information. You can download the data, all of that type of stuff. Another thing that I want to kind of point you guys to, oh, do we have a question, Caroline? Right on.
Yeah, I wanted to flag what you just said. So somebody asked about kind of a data biography or dictionary for each of our data sets. And so I know you talked about Learn More pages before, but maybe you can just point to them one more time here.
Yeah, happy to do that. So, you can, if you're sort of on a data set on the map, you can just kind of click this little link here, and I'm just going to open it in a new tab, and that'll take you back to this great page where, as it's loading, we kind of have all of this information about this particular data set. If you are in the kind of home page and you're just kind of looking to explore all of the different data sets that we have, you can go up here to the data menu and kind of within each different policy area sort of see all of the different data sets that we have available, and it'll sort of take you, whoops, I clicked on it like 4 times. It'll take you to those same Learn More pages where you can kind of see all of the data sets that are available. And then if you click on any of these pages, it'll take you right into all that really great Learn More information. Okay, so I'm back in the map. I hope that answered the question. A couple other things that I want to show you guys. So currently we have Westlake selected, but let's say that we wanted to sort of compare Westlake to another neighborhood. I'm going to zoom out just like a tiny bit. There we go. So let's say that we wanted to sort of compare Westlake to another neighborhood. So what you can do is click on more than one neighborhood at once. And you'll notice that this nice graph has now shown up on the data tab. And what this graph does is shows you both sort of the trend lines over time for these two individual data sets. And it also shows you sort of their collective trend line, which is this big dotted black line. So just to go through it, we are currently in 2017, and you can move years, you guys, by using this little time slider down here on the left-hand corner. So let's say that I wanted to go over to 2010. So the value for Westlake, so 59% of folks in Westlake were rent burdened in 2017. And if I make the switch to 2010, we can see it's still 59%. So that really hasn't changed too much over time. And you can also sort of see that here in this pink line that's showing the kind of trend in Westlake over time. So the 2010 value looks really, really similar to the 2017-18 value over here. We have the same thing for Pico Union, but you can sort of see that rent burden has actually been going up a lot more in Pico Union. So it started out about 56% in 2010. And if we go over to 2018, so again, you can sort of change the slider on the map. We can see that it's about 63%. And you can also see that value here on the data tab on the graph here. And this black line is kind of showing the aggregate of the two neighborhoods together. So what does rent burden look like for residents in both of these neighborhoods over time is what that black line is showing. So I think I'm gonna pause for questions here also, and I'll show you guys a couple other cool things about the map after that before we move into creating your own neighborhood.
Right on. So there was a follow-up question, Ellie, to the data dictionary question, which is this. Do we also provide information on the protocols and analysis we use to analyze the data? And I think the answer is in our metadata, if we do something to manipulate the data, we describe that process. If it's as simple as that, then that's something that we do. Like if it's per 1,000 households, we explain what we mean by a household and how we define those terms. So Bruno, if you want to clarify more, if I'm getting what you're saying, let me know. If you want to ask more specifically, we're happy to answer. So do we clean the data in any way, Ellie?
Sure, that's a great question. So for some of these data sets, we do like a really small amount of cleaning. So sometimes the data will come, at a bunch of different like point levels, and then we'll sort of just roll them right up into census tracts. But typically we don't do a lot of cleaning with the data because it is publicly available. A lot of it comes at the census tract level already. So it's sort of minor, but we do describe those processes when we do.
Thank you. And then, so somebody wants to know about aggregating more than two neighborhoods, which I know you're going to talk about soon, which is one of my favorite parts of the website. And then another person asks how to use these visuals for external use. So do you think you can get to both of those?
I can totally get to both of those. Okay. So the question around more than two neighborhoods is like a super easy and awesome question. And all you have to do is just click another neighborhood and it adds it right on into your graph. And by the way, you're always going to this spot to sort of look at the aggregate of the whatever neighborhoods or geographies you have selected. So what I mean by that is the way to read it is, so right now I have Westlake, Koreatown, and Pico Union all selected. And so the way to read this is 59% of residents across all three of these neighborhoods were rent burdened in 2018. So I can add East Hollywood, I can add Silver Lake, and you can sort of see that more and more lines are getting added to this graph here, but I'll always go back to read the kind of aggregate of my selection in the same spot. So now that I've added Silver Lake, which looks like it has much less rent burden than some of these other neighborhoods, you can sort of see Silver Lake down here compared to everybody else up here. And also our kind of neighborhood total has gone down to 58% when you add in a neighborhood that has kind of a lower value. In terms of using these visualizations for, you know, kind of downloading reports, all that type of stuff. So what I will say is that if you want to use the map itself, you can go over here in the top right-hand menu and you can click share, and you can embed the map in your website, or you can sort of copy and paste the link here. So that's kind of one way to do it. I think, unfortunately, in terms of sort of the graphs on the side here, the best way to do it might be to do sort of a screenshot on your computer. We do have sort of on our feature request list to make some of our visualizations a little bit more printer friendly, but it's kind of in the queue right now, I would say. So I think if there's no more questions right at this spot, I'll show you guys oh, Caroline, another question?
No, that's a good transition point. And I wanted to just note that the answer on the cleaning and algorithms was totally satisfactory. But I think if people want to get a little more technical, like what R scripts did we write to get the data from our computer to the Socrata platform, just send us an email and we'll set up a time to chat, because that's pretty weedy for this group. But I think you've got, yeah, you've got it down. So thank you, Ellie.
Okay, cool. Yes, whoever, again, I can't see the chat, but I would totally love to nerd out with you on like all of the SATA and data things. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys a couple other cool things about the map. So one of the things is that I showed you guys earlier how to sort of download all the data that we have for a certain data set. But let's say you just sort of wanted to download this group of neighborhoods that you have selected for the current year. So basically download the data for the current kind of snapshot of the map that you're looking at. You can do that over here on the kind of top right-hand corner of the data tab. There's a little cloud with a down arrow in it. And if you click that, it will download an Excel spreadsheet that basically just has these sort of, 5 neighborhoods that I have selected. And it's just going to show you rent burden and these neighborhoods for the year 2018. It'll show you kind of the individual values for each neighborhood. So again, you can see much lower here in Silver Lake. And then it'll also show you the aggregated value, which is, by the way, you guys, the same value that's right over here in the data tab. So that's one cool thing. Another thing that I'll show you guys just as a transition to kind of a couple other things is if you have a bunch of different neighborhoods selected and you kind of want to get back to a reset, there's a couple different ways that you can reset the map back to normal. One of them is that you can go through these little blue boxes and kind of click and it'll start deselecting neighborhoods. If you have like 30 of these selected, another kind of pro tip over here on the data tab is if you click this little, like, it looks like a recycle button almost. If you click that, it'll take the map back to kind of just no selection. So if we zoom out, we can sort of just see like everything in LA County is not selected. And you can tell if you have a neighborhood selected, again, by this little blue thing up here. And also it'll like populate on the data tab. So if I deselect it, everything kind of just goes back to a reset. So that's kind of working with selecting neighborhoods, kind of looking at data for multiple neighborhoods. Another really cool thing about NDSC is that we have other data besides neighborhoods, or I guess I should say other geographies besides neighborhoods. And you can get to those geographies by clicking on this kind of neighborhoods, I don't know, button over here on the top left-hand corner. And it's a drop-down menu, and you can see that we also have cities and census tracts available. So I'll just click on the cities layer just to show you guys what that looks like. So you can sort of see there's a lot of holes in the map as compared to before. And that's because this layer is only showing the 88 cities in LA County. So that's helpful for folks, of course, who work in local government, pretty essential, I think. But if you work at the county or you work in unincorporated areas, you know, you can just get the data either at the neighborhood or census tract level. So it's just particularly not available for unincorporated areas, only in this layer. So that's kind of switching between layers. I will pause one more time to see if there are any questions, and then I want to show you guys how to create your own neighborhood.
No, you're good.
All right. Okay. So let's get into creating your own neighborhood. And so I'm going to show you guys how to do this on the census tracts layer, because I think it's the most sort of, I don't know, it just has like the tiniest boxes and it's kind of the most difficult to navigate. But know that you can also do this on the neighborhood or the city layer. So while I'm navigating over to the census tract layer, which again, you guys, just to change geographies, you're over here on the top left-hand side, and I'm going to select census tracts this time. So we're doing this on the census tracts layer, and as you can see, even as the map is loading, there's like so many more little tiny boxes than there was on the neighborhood or cities layer, and that's because there's about 2,300 census tracts in LA County compared to about 270 neighborhoods and 88 cities. So these are much smaller geographies that you're working with on the census tract layer with much smaller populations. So again, we're gonna do sort of create your own neighborhood using census tracts, but let's say we work with a trusted partner called the SELA Collaborative, Southeast LA Collaborative, and they have sort of a catchment area that fits really well into 10 neighborhoods. So they actually use this feature on the neighborhood level. So just know that you can kind of use it with whatever geography you want. Okay. So the first thing that we'll do to kind of create our own neighborhood is center ourselves on the map. So typically, if you're not a real data wonk, you don't know what census tract you're looking for. So what we can do then is just search by address. So the key here is we're going to use the same search bar that we used to look up neighborhoods earlier. But the key is that you want to select this little drop-down menu that says region, and we'll change it to address instead. So this is just telling the map that, hey, we're looking for addresses now rather than neighborhood names. And so I heard some folks say that they are interested in the USC area. And so I'm going to go to USC and our old building address, just to show you guys what that looks like. So you can see if you start to sort of type in an address, the little drop-down menu kind of populates and you can click on the one you want. And the map will zoom you right into wherever the address is that you selected. So what you want to do when you get all zoomed in is just click the point sort of immediately in the middle of the map. And that'll select the census tract immediately containing the address that you looked for. And so what you'll notice when you do that about kind of the rest of the map is that it becomes sort of this nice kind of translucent color. And this particular map layer has a lot of really good kind of hints and clues about where you are. So there's a lot of, and even if you zoom in even more, you can see more kind of like landmarks and stuff. So like you can see the USC Village over here, the Coliseum. So what you want to do when you're thinking about creating your own neighborhood is kind of use the streets as your guide and the landmarks. And you can start selecting different census tracts around the area that you want. And you just click it once to select it. And you can start building your own neighborhood. And there is no limit for the amount of census tracts that you can select. And you can select ones that aren't touching if that's how you define a neighborhood. You know, it's really sort of free here to kind of create the neighborhood that you want. And so once we have the neighborhood selected that we want, this is a little bit of a funky shape, but I'm feeling creative today, I guess. So we can go over again kind of how to look at data for this. But what I want to show you guys first is how to save this neighborhood. So I want to be clear, you don't have to save a neighborhood in order to use this feature, but it is really useful for some of our sort of quote unquote power users who have a really specific geography that they like to use and who don't want to go through and select it every single time they want to use NDSC. So what you can sort of do once you have your neighborhood selected, if you want to save it, is what you'll do is over here in the top right-hand corner, you'll select sign in, and it'll kind of prompt you to create a Socrata account. And if you don't have one, you can sign up here in this little top right-hand corner. Again, this is not necessary to create your own neighborhood, but it is necessary to save it, which can be helpful. So I'm just going to stop talking for a second while I think about what my password is. Whew, that was a lot of pressure, you guys. All right. So once you're signed in successfully, you'll get a little green message up here on the top right-hand corner. And what you'll now notice, I'm sure you guys weren't really looking very closely at the menu up here, but when you're signed in, it'll say, hi, whoever you are. And you'll also have this new option that says saved. So this is where you can sort of access all of the different neighborhoods that you've saved if you want to do this. And again, just to be clear, this is really useful for somebody like the LA Promise Zones, where their sort of area that they work in is like, I don't know, 100 census tracts or something like that. So what they did is they went through and selected all of the different census tracts that they had in their catchment area, sort of like we just did here. And then they went to this save search and they named their search. So I'm going to name this one USC. They named it LA Promise Zone or whatever, and they clicked OK. And you'll get a green message that your search is saved. And so whenever I want to go back to look at this particular funky shape that I've created, what I can do is log in and go to my saved menu. And you'll see that I have all of these different USC neighborhoods from all of the different trainings that I've done. And what you can do is sort of click view on map for the neighborhood that you are trying to look at. And if you click view on map, it'll take you right back to the page that, right back to the map page with these specific sort of census tracts selected. So again, that is not necessary per se to create your own neighborhood, but it is a helpful feature if you have a bunch of census tracts and you're using NDSC a lot. So that is sort of creating and saving. Let's look again at how to view this data for your neighborhood, right? So, and let's go to a different data set too. I heard somebody say they were interested in languages. So I'm gonna go into our social connectedness policy area, which has a lot of really cool kind of different things in it around kind of libraries and parks access, but it also has languages spoken at home. So I'm going to click on that data set and I'm going to go to Spanish just so we can see how many folks we have. And I don't want to get the definition wrong. So let me, when it loads. Okay, so this specifically is looking at the percentage of people who speak mostly Spanish at home. So you can hover, of course, over the different census tracts to get the sort of different values of the census tracts. But if you want to look at the data for the whole neighborhood that you've created, we just go right back to this same kind of spot that we were looking at earlier. And you can see we're in 2018 and about 57% of folks in this neighborhood that I've created around USC are speaking mostly Spanish at home. And you can sort of see the kind of glaring yellow census tract right here, immediately where USC is. So that's like where, right where the school is. And so that is much lower, just about 8% of folks in that particular census tract. But again, across the whole neighborhood, about 57% of folks are speaking Spanish in this neighborhood. And so you guys probably just saw this, but basically your geography will stay selected regardless of kind of what census tract you have selected. So like, let's say that I wanted to go look at Korean for languages, I can select a different data set and the data set will update, but your sort of selection will stay the same. So you guys, that is how to create your own neighborhood. And let's look, much lower, just only about 2% of folks are speaking Korean in these neighborhoods, or this neighborhood that I selected rather. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there and ask Caroline if folks have any questions.
No, there aren't any questions, but that was really cool and a really good example of how to create your own neighborhood. And then I was consistently comparing the data with the LA County average and seeing how different they were. And so that's like a really nice feature too. But no question.
Right on. Okay, cool. Well, you guys, I think that ends our training then. Caroline and I will send out an email with like a really helpful how-to guide that talks about a bunch of different things that we did in this training. So you can sort of reference it as you're using NDSC on your own. And we're going to send a feedback form and our contact info, so you can always reach out to us. And I'll turn it over to Caroline to take us home.
Thanks, Ellie. That was really good. And I want to thank you all for joining us today. If you have a minute, get on Twitter and follow us at NDSC_LA so you can see when new data is being released, and also sign up for more trainings. Tell your friends about NDSC, and I hope everyone has a happy and safe Thanksgiving at home. Thank you very much.